Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Bros Football Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Harris, and with me are two of my six best friends, Mike Tagliere and Kyle Yates. You can find us on Twitter at DanHarris80, at Mike Tagliere NFL, and at Kyle Y NFL. Guys, how are you?
I'm pumped. I mean, I don't know. Yates probably doesn't know the song, but before the podcast started, I listened to LL Cool J's "I'm Bad." And do you know that song, Yates?
I'm bad. I'm bad.
Oh,
is that
God.
Michael Jackson?
No.
The podcast is officially over. Thank you for joining us on the Fantasy Bros Podcast. Yeah. Oh. So is that your pump up song, Tags?
It was today. It made me feel good, and I was ready for the podcast. I mean, I'm just pumped to be here.
All right. So a few PSAs before we get into it. My office has like skylights. So sometimes if you're ever watching, you can see the light change. We're like 30 seconds away from a monstrous thunderstorm. I can feel it. I can see it coming. So you're going to hear, I will try to mute myself when I am not talking, but there's like a pretty good chance that you're just going to hear some crazy background noise going on right now. So just prepare yourself. Let's get into it. We have a lot to cover today. We've got start sit. We've got COVID concerns. We'll get into that. Let me just first announce the winner of our monster giveaway that recently ended. Finally, we were able to confirm it's James K. from Columbia, Missouri. Congratulations. Remember, our next monster giveaway, our contest, is already going on. It runs through the end of October. Go to fantasypros.com/contest for more details. This is our start sit show, boys, but we must address, and it will impact our start sit, the COVID news that came out today. This is the afternoon on Wednesday. So here's what we know. Stephon Gilmore has tested positive for COVID-19. 2 more Tennessee Titans players have tested positive. A Raider has tested positive. There is now an investigation going on into whether the Titans broke protocol. They might forfeit a game. We don't really know. The Titans are on hold until at least Friday because they need a couple of days of no tests regardless. Remember, they play the Bills. The Bills, I believe, play on Thursday against the Chiefs, so you can't push this game to Monday. There's all sorts of stuff going on. Guys, what are you doing right now, I guess, with players in these games? I know for our analysis, it's kind of on hold a little bit, but what do you do if you are rostering? The Patriots are against the Broncos. The Raiders go against the Chiefs. What are you doing if you're rostering players on those teams?
Well, fortunately, you don't have to worry too much about the Thursday night game because most people, like, if they're actual fantasy relevant teams playing on Thursday, you might be like, oh, do I start this guy or do I start this guy?
But that does factor in, right, Tex? Because what if you've got guys on the Titans or what if you've got on the Patriots and you're in this debate?
Well, right, that's what I'm saying. But the Bears don't have a whole lot of fantasy relevant players, and the Bucs, let's be real, and those guys are beat to hell. And there's just probably 1 or 2 players in that team that you would think about starting. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be as bad as people think. I think we're going to have an advance notice on this one. I am guessing, by the way, that the Titans game is going to be canceled and that they're going to forfeit the game because there's apparently pictures all over the internet. Paul Kuharsky, who's the beat reporter that covers the Titans, has pictures of them practicing on a field, which means if they broke protocol, then they can forfeit that game. And again, they had 2 days with no positive tests, and then all of a sudden one pops up. So I don't even know what 2 days is going to do. I don't think this game is being played.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, look, you might be sitting there, though, with Ronald Jones, who maybe you don't really want to start necessarily, but you might have to. Or Scotty Miller, who you might have to start at this point. I mean, if you're on the fence right now, Yates, with any of these games, I mean, you can say the Titans, that's fine. But what about the Patriots against the Broncos? What about the Raiders against the Chiefs? We didn't know about that the Pats were going to be able to play the Chiefs until the day before, essentially. Are you starting borderline guys right now, Yates, on in the Bears-Bucks game?
Or
are you going to wait it out?
Oranges, in my opinion. Looking at the Titans game, that I'm with Tex. I do expect that game to be canceled or like they forfeit it because that's just, if they're breaking protocol, then it's just not going to happen. If we have a positive test now, for them to go 2 days of negative test puts it at Friday at the earliest, and then at that point, the NFL has to make a decision by that point. So looking, though, at the Patriots, like that is a different situation where you only have one player, outside of Cam Newton at this point. So now Stephon Gilmore test positive, like that was in the cards and in the realm of possibilities to begin the season, where you're looking at these players, and that is why they expanded practice squads. That's why they added the IR only being 3 weeks. So that way, if you do have a player who tests positive, you have the depth to be able to support it. So I think if the Patriots get through tomorrow and they don't have another positive COVID test, then I would anticipate that the Patriots are playing their game against the Broncos. So I think you can move forward with those players. However, if you do have Titans players, then I think you do need to be ready to pivot. So if you do have Derrick Henry and you have, another RB2 option, and then you're looking at, let's just say your roster is Derrick Henry, Chris Carson, and then Ronald Jones. Those are your main running backs. At that point, I would be moving forward and playing Ronald Jones and Chris Carson.
So here's my overarching advice generally. If you have, certainly in the Titans and the Bills, because I think we all agree at this point, it's looking, we would all place money if we were betting men on that game not being played this weekend. Patriots against the Broncos, Raiders against the Chiefs. If you are rostering players on those teams and they are part of your starting lineup and you do not have backups on your team, go now to your waiver wire. Make sure you are able to fill a full roster. You don't want to go, a couple more days and then realize, oh no, something happened. There's more players. The Patriots in particular worry me because of the fact that this is not these two guys. You assume Gilmore. I don't know. We don't know how this works exactly, but you assume there's in some way related. Who knows how many more guys could have it. So just make sure right now. Proceed as if the games are not going to be played just so that you can make sure you have options, assuming that gets to the case. Let's go to some other minor news here before we jump into it. Kyle Allen is taking over for Dwayne Haskins against the Rams and for the foreseeable future. Haskins actually is going to be the number 3 option. Alex Smith is going to be the number 2 option. Tags, does this have any impact on the way you view the few fantasy options that were available to you on the Washington football team?
No, not really at all. Dwayne Haskins played his best game. I don't know why he was benched after that one
right.
against the Ravens, but they were just looking for a reason to bench him. It happens. Kyle Allen, last year he was pretty bad, but at least he was able to support a fantasy relevant wide receiver in DJ Moore almost every single week. So I would assume that Terry McLaurin's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I'm right
there. You agree there, Yates?
That Terry McLaurin's a fine wide receiver too moving forward. Antonio Gibson actually might even see some more work out of the backfield as a receiver because of this. So yeah. I think that Gibson moving forward is a fine RB2 play every single week.
And the news that's probably has the biggest fantasy ramifications across the landscape is the fact that Sam Darnold is out this weekend and Joe Flacco is going to be starting. Jameson Crowder is a fairly kind of reliable option when he's in there. Is he less reliable now that Joe Flacco is going to be starting? Or, Yates, are you still willing to roll him out there as wherever you have him, wide receiver 3?
Yeah, wide receiver 3.
2.
I think you roll him out there. He's still going to see. Okay. He's still a huge part of this offense. And you look at the other options and you say, well, the ball has to go somewhere. Now, I will say that I think he gets a downgrade because we are expecting Le'Veon Bell to come off of IR. So that's a little bit of a downgrade. But yet, I just think that he's still going to see enough volume to support wide receiver 3 numbers.
How about you, Tex?
Yeah, I'm downgrading him a little bit with Flacco. Flacco hasn't targeted his slot receivers a whole lot over the course of his career. He has targeted running backs quite a bit, though. So Le'Veon Bell, if anything, this raises his value. I think it lowers Crowder. He is still a big part of the offense, but I don't know if Flacco changes his ways, 3/4, 4/5 the way through his career because Adam Gase's offense plays, targets the slot receiver a lot more. And even Sam Darnold, before Adam Gase got there, Darnold was targeting his slot receiver and his tight end quite a bit. So I do believe it's more of a Darnold thing than it is necessarily just an Adam Gase thing. So he's fine, but he's a low upside player. We know that. Joe Flacco's not throwing 3 touchdowns in a game or anything.
Well, thankfully, Gase has already come out, and when asked how the offense might change under Joe Flacco instead of Sam Darnold, he said it doesn't. So continue to expect massive fantasy games from everybody involved. We'll get to him, actually, because he's on one of my lists. Jameson Crowder is 40th in half PPR wide receiver rankings, which is, even with Flacco, is still way too low to me. But we will get there, regardless of if Bell comes back. Bell has been designated to return from IR, and he is practicing. The expectation is that he will be able to play this weekend against Arizona, but we don't know that for sure. All right, start sit day. We're going to get into it. We're going to take a look at some guys, you know what we do here, who are borderline starters. You don't need us to tell you that the obvious starts are the obvious starts. We'll look at some definite starters who might be a little more questionable to us. We'll take a look at some deep sleepers. We'll very quickly then break down the Thursday night game between the Bucs and the Bears. Now, again, this is Start Sit. It is hardly our only start resource that we offer here, especially on our site. You can go to our Start Sit Assistant over at fantasypros.com/myplaybook. If you're not using my playbook, then you're not doing what you really need to be doing. You can get recommendations on who to start each week. Set your lineup straight from my playbook. You can use our multi-league mode, submit your lineups to your respective league host, even on different platforms. It's an edge you can get really nowhere else. Go to fantasypros.com/myplaybook. All right, let's get into this here, guys. Let's start with running backs. That's where we usually go. Guys outside the top 20 in our expert consensus rankings. Again, expert consensus rankings or ECR. Those are the rankings submitted by analysts all over the industry that gives you an aggregate and an average. So let's take a look, Tags, right now at guys who are outside the top 20 in ECR who you're a little higher on.
Oh, it's really difficult to go outside with this week. It's I'm looking at the rankings. I'm kind of feeling like we're in bye week hell. You know what I mean? Like, when you get to the point where there's like 6 teams on bye and you're looking at the rankings, you're like, there's no way this guy's a top 20 running back. And then you look and you're just like, well, I guess he is compared to everybody else. So I would put Le'Veon Bell definitely in there. Again, He's someone that's down in the rankings because I don't think people have adjusted him just yet. But if looking further, I mean, Ronald Jones, I know he's playing on Thursday night, but I'll put him in the top 20 considering I don't think Leonard Fournette is going to play. Ronald Jones looked pretty good last week against the Chargers defense that has done pretty well against the run all year, but he totaled 111 yards. He did see 9 targets. He had 3 drops in that game. It was almost like going back to Bruce Arians when he talked about Ronald Jones during training camp. He said, Ronald Jones has been really good as a pass catcher out of the backfield. He had one bad day. This was another just bad day. So I don't want to say that they completely write him off. And Keyshawn Vaughn, not too long after that, dropped a pass. So I don't think Keyshawn Vaughn is going to have a big role in this offense. It's clear that, Bruce Arians kind of put him in the doghouse, but knowing that Leonard Fournette might not play and LaShawn McCoy might not play, Vaughn should have a bigger role. But the Bears, they've been a fine run defense, not great, but this is not a high scoring game. This is not one where the Bucs are going to be throwing the ball 45 times. They don't need to. They're going to run the ball against the Bears, and I would expect Ronald Jones to have at least 18 carries in this game. So I do believe he's viable as a low end RB2. I know it's not sexy, but a lot of plays aren't this week.
Yeah, Ronald Jones, 21st, so not crazy out of the top 20. I think Fournette might play, apparently. I'm a little surprised at that, but I'd be expecting him not to, and I don't think McCoy is going to play, and I don't think Keyshawn Vaughn is a viable option. Sort of, you always run the risk with Jones as to when he fumbles or has a bad drop or misses a blitz pickup that they'll go to the backup, but I really don't think that they're going to just go to Vaughn. So I think he has a little more leash in this room. Let me give you another player here, Tags, right there. How about Ronald Jones on Thursday or Antonio Gibson against the Rams?
I mean, Gibson's the upside play because you're looking for a big play, but after when we did the Sunday show, we don't have the snap counts available to us right away. And Gibson appeared to overtake that workhorse role, but he really didn't. 39 snaps and 31 snaps. So J.D. McKissic was still on the field for more than Antonio Gibson. Does it change with Kyle Allen? We are seeing a transition that's slowly happening, but this game is projected to be in the Rams' favor throughout. So knowing that, J.D. McKissic has been out there running more routes. So Antonio Gibson's role is a little bit more risky in terms of projecting that. So I do have Ronald Jones 2 spots higher than Antonio Gibson. But Gibson does offer that big play potential. He's a guy that could break an 80-yard touchdown and kind of make his week, whereas Ronald Jones is just not that guy.
How about Ronald Jones versus the other main running back in the Thursday night game, David Montgomery?
Give me Jones.
Okay.
David Montgomery's been garbage. He looked good in week 1. Week 2 is okay. He's looked like the running back from last year again. This offensive line is doing him no favors. He's not even seeing stacked boxes, so that's not the problem. It is encouraging that he saw 6 targets last week. It was a career high for him. But the Bucs have been last year. The Bucs, they allowed the fewest yards per target to running backs, and they allowed the fewest yards per carry to running backs.
Yep.
There's really nothing on this Bears team to worry about. So David Montgomery, I'm not excited about him this week.
Yeah, I agree with you on both of those. I have Jones ahead of both those guys. All right, Yates, let's go to you. A guy outside the top 20 in ECR who you're kind of
looking at the list, it was pretty disgusting. To get outside the top 20, I was like, oh, I don't want to talk about any of these players. But no, the guy that you talked about him, it's Antonio Gibson. And I think that if you're looking for these options, you look outside of the top 20, and every single player comes with question marks. Ronald Jones, we talked about it, that what happens if he does end up dropping another some of those drops were just egregious last week. And what happens if he does fumble? Okay, well then he's gone. He's benched. What happens if David Montgomery doesn't get the work, can't produce? The Bears are the only team in the NFL that doesn't have a rushing touchdown so far this year. It's just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. They can't get anything done. Mark Ingram, who knows what his workload's going to be like? He's at 24. Joshua Kelley at 25 and half PPR ECR. Who knows what I think he's going to get the majority of the work, but it's a tough matchup for him. So all these guys come with question marks. I think the only one that is trending upward and the one that we can say if I want to bet on the big play potential, it's Antonio Gibson. But again, I'm not necessarily ranking him like within my top 12 or anything like that, going out on a super far limb. So I just think Gibson is probably the best of this bunch. But again, I'm not super confident in him.
Yeah, I do not think that this is the week where somebody's going to sit there and be like, ooh, boy, you know who I'm feeling? The guy who's ranked 30th at running back. I really think he could have it. It's just not that week. I mean, we've talked about it, especially not given that not only are we into bye weeks, but you may have that problem with the Titans and the Bills. Kelley is the guy for me. He's a little further down than, Ronald Jones is 21st in ECR. Antonio Gibson is 22nd. Kelley's 25th. He was 26th when I looked at this morning. I don't love Joshua Kelley this week at all. We talked about it's another tough matchup with the Saints, but they're probably still going to be down. Mike Williams is my expectations. He's averaged about 15 touches per game with Austin Eckler, and now I do expect him to be the quote-unquote lead back, although he's going to cede touches to Jackson. I think he'll probably come close to 20 touches in this game, probably around 15 carries, 4 or 5 targets. That's what I haven't projected for. That's what I expect. Everybody in that range has question marks. It's kind of what we're saying. So the fact that he's outside of the RB2 range, even if it's just by a spot, to me, he's in there. I have him in my early projections as the 20th ranked running back. Not a huge difference between those guys, but he's a guy who I'm willing to go with. How do you guys view the Chargers backfield? Yates, you mentioned it, but Tags, how are you viewing right now the running backs for the Chargers in a tough matchup against the Saints?
I believe Kelley's going to be in a similar role to one he's been in the last few weeks. He might have a couple more carries latched on, but the Saints, if you look at them over the last 20 games, they've allowed like 3.6 yards per carry. They've allowed, I think, just 10 rushing touchdowns. I was looking at it earlier today. I think as on an average, they're allowing about 60-something rushing yards per game and half of a touchdown over the last 20 games. And that's to an entire team. It's not to one running back. So it's been a brutal a matchup for running backs. There have only been 6 running backs who have scored more than 15 PPR points against them. And 5 of those 6 running backs caught at least, I think, 5 or 6 passes in their matchup, which is something Josh Kelley is not really going to do. So I am worried about him this week. He's like a boring RB3. I would rather play Gibson just because Gibson at least presents some big play upside, whereas Kelley's not that guy. I'm really interested to see if Justin Jackson is involved more in the passing game than people are kind of expecting, because that offense is just, they're missing a lot. They don't have, it's a very top heavy offense. That's why Keenan Allen has 41 targets over the last 3 weeks, because they just don't have anybody else. Mike Williams might come back this week, but even if he does, he has a tough matchup with Janoris Jenkins and Marshawn Lattimore. If they play, there's so many if, ands, or buts about this game that I don't really know how to feel. And if Tyrod Taylor comes back, all of a sudden the running backs aren't targeted as much in the passing game, so you don't want that. There's so many question marks about this game right now. Ideally, it's a situation you avoid, but it's probably unlikely that you're able to. Justin Jackson should remain on benches and kind of see what you have. Don't drop him. But Joshua Kelley is kind of he's just a boring RB3 for me this week.
Joshua Kelley or Darrell Henderson against Washington?
Henderson. At least he presents some upside there, and I don't know if Cam Akers is going to play again.
That's Henderson.
How about you,
for me. Or I'm sorry, that's Kelley for me. Henderson, many freaking question marks, and I think Akers is trending upward to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does sound like that, and I also have Kelley ahead. How about Joshua Kelley, Tags, or Myles Gaskin at San Francisco?
Ooh, that one's close. I do have Joshua Kelley higher. I have him 2 spots higher in my rankings right now, so that's, I guess, my breaking point, because Gaskin comes with absolutely zero upside against San Francisco. None. He doesn't get goal line touches. That team's tough to run against. He's going to catch some passes, but he's just more of a decent floor option, which the same can be said about Kelley.
All right, anybody else outside the top 20 that you find yourself a little higher on? I do have one guy, and I'm not going to rush to recommend starting this guy, but I'll defer to you guys first. Is there anybody else outside the top 20 who you find yourself a little higher on, you think, than the consensus?
Looks like I'm higher on Devonta Freeman.
Me too. That was the guy, actually. Oh, wonderful. Where do you guys have him? He is 31st, I believe, 31st in ECR. Where do you guys have him ranked this week?
Well, to be fair, I don't have 2 of the games in my projections yet because I don't know if they're going to be played. I have them at 25, so I would say anywhere between 25 and 27 is where I'm going to have the running backs.
And I am at 26. Okay, so we're all in that same. Yeah, this is. I was the guy on the waiver wire when he came out. That was late. We had already put together our waiver wire rankings. We might have even already done our waiver wire show. And then he signed with the Giants. And you guys immediately bumped him up to one of your top pickups of the week. And I didn't. I was just saying I don't see myself wanting to start him. But last week, he looked better than I expected, and he was still involved in the passing game, which should give him a high floor. And I think this might be an okay game for the Giants offense. Actually, I think, you've got the Giants offense that has been struggling, but it's then, again, the cure for all ills in the Dallas defense. So I do think he's a guy who you can roll out there just outside of RB2 range, but it sounds like we're all in agreement. So that's good. Well done. Let's go to wide receivers. Tag, somebody who is looking to start, let's say, outside the top 30.
I haven't been high on this guy, but the industry has been a lot higher than me. But this week, I think I'm coming around to a breakout party for Laviska Shenault. His role has grown. Saw 4 targets over the first 2 games. He was involved in a little bit of moving him around in the Wildcat, getting him carries, but now he has 6 targets in each of the last 2 games. DJ Chark is going to be matched up with Bradley Roby this week. That they have him shadowing opposing number ones. Not to say that he's something like you really have to worry about, but it does downgrade his matchup a little bit, whereas Shenault would match up with Vernon Hargreaves. And if you follow any wide receiver cornerback matchup stuff or talk about my primer, he's someone that we've attacked in matchups continually. Over the course of his 5 years in the league, he's now allowed a 70% completion rate in his coverage, 13 yards per reception, and a touchdown every 27 targets. This is a game we are projecting more pass attempts for them against Houston, so I think Shenault could have a breakout party. So is a guy that, in a week where we're missing a lot of, we don't have 36 wide receivers that we feel great about. So why not pivot to a guy that presents massive upside and could have that breakout party?
Where do you have him in your rankings, Tags?
He's at 28 right now.
Okay.
So it just depends, again, on those other 2 games. It could slide him down into the 30, like the early 30s, but still, that's in the wide receiver 3 range where, again, he's a guy that's coming with some upside, has 6 targets in each of the last 2 games. So it's not like you're starting a guy that's been getting 3 targets and I'm projecting a big increase. He has been getting some targets.
He has. He's got 6 targets and I believe 5 receptions in both of the last 2 games. Again, my big thing with him is I want them to involve him more in the Wildcat and creatively like they did early on, and they haven't been, but I'm about where ECR is. Let me throw a couple names out there for you then, Tags. Laviska Shenault, or let's assume the games are being played here. Let's assume the Bills play the Titans. John Brown or Shenault. And you may not have that game pegged yet, so that may be unfair.
Don't have it pegged yet.
Okay.
I probably would have John Brown over him, to be honest. Tennessee's secondary is pathetic. I probably would go John Brown there. One player that I would start over him as well is Deante Johnson. Deante Johnson's outside the top 30, but I feel like I don't know if some people are just not prepared for that game to be played, because his ranking ranks from 17th all the way up to 59th among wide receivers, which makes no sense. Deontay Johnson should be in lineups. I have him as a borderline wide receiver 2 this week. So
how about Jarvis Landry, Tags, against Indianapolis or Laviska Shenault?
I don't necessarily mind the matchup against Indianapolis, but I don't think there's upside there with Landry, considering the Colts' opponents are averaging like low 50s in terms of plays per game. So that's going to be a very boring game between those 2 teams.
Yes.
I'll go with Shenault there.
Yeah, I have Shenault higher than Landry. Landry's a fade for me this week for sure. All right, Yates, let's go to you. Outside the top 30,
well,
guy
since
who
Tags got
at.
to mention 2 players, he stole one of mine. So Deontay Johnson was the guy that I wanted to bring up here. No, Johnson, I think we're getting to the point now where fantasy managers are forgetting his week 1 and week 2 performance, because in week 3 he went out early, only saw 2 targets, and then went out with the concussion. And then of course last week didn't clear concussion protocol, and then the game gets postponed. So I think fantasy managers and even the experts are just forgetting about the target totals that Deontay Johnson was seeing. 10 in week 1, 13 in week 2. So I think looking at the opportunity here, it's not the most fantastic matchup against Philadelphia, but yet at the same time, he's seeing enough targets that he definitely needs to be in consideration as a wide receiver 2, if not higher.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Tags, you said that you have him as a borderline wide receiver 2 this week?
Yeah.
All right, Yates, let me put a couple of guys out there for you. Michael Gallup against the Giants.
It's Deontay
Johnson this week. Darius Slayton against
Deontay
the Cowboys
Johnson.
or Johnson. Let me give you a good one. How about Justin Jefferson?
That's a good one. Those guys are really close.
Jefferson.
I've got Johnson at 23 and I've got Jefferson at 25. So, I mean, super close, but I'd play Johnson.
How about you, Tags, in that one?
I actually have Jefferson. I have Jefferson as a top 20 play this week.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I'm 20.
No, so get this. Going through the primer, I already wrote up that game.
Yeah. Can we talk about
Adam
this game,
Thielen
please?
So no, if Adam Thielen and Jefferson both finish as top 24 wide receivers, that would actually be an improvement for the Seahawks. I'm serious. If they only allowed 2 top 24 wide receivers, there have I think I think there's been 8 wide receivers who have already finished top 12 against them. It's kind of ridiculous at this point. It's just nuts.
All right, let's have some fun then. Let's go through every receiver in that game very quickly. Where do you have Adam Thielen ranked, Tags?
Wide receiver 4 right
3.
now.
Yates. 4 for me. Okay, so we're all right there. Where do you have DK Metcalf ranked, Tags?
5.
4.
Yates. I'm fading him big time this week. I'm all the way down at 7. Tyler Lockett. Tags.
6.
5.
Yates.
6.
All right, I'm fading again, all the way down at 9. And then Justin Jefferson,
My.
you just said, Tags. I don't know if he's going to end up there, by the way. The difference between where I am and all these guys is so small. But Tags, go ahead. Justin Jefferson, you said what, 20?
I have him as top 20. He's 18 right now. But again, like those 2 games that are still pending are going to factor in. But I have him 18. So that's around the range he's going to be.
Yeah.
25.
How about you, Yates? Yeah, I'm 24th. And again, this is... I'm ranking everybody. I'm sure the Titans and the Bills are probably not going to play, which is going to bump everybody
same here.
Even further up. So, yeah. All right.
This
Start
is,
everybody
I
in
mean,
that
just
game.
for context here, 57.5
go
point
ahead.
over-under. And you have the easiest matchup for opposing wide receivers with Seattle up against the 4th easiest matchup for opposing wide receivers with Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, let us all not forget that sometimes it seems too easy, and then you get what we got last week with Seattle and the Dolphins, where it was slightly just, of course, Tyler Lockett, did very little. Devontae Parker factored in, of course, but it was a little bit of a disappointment. But yeah, start everybody in that game. Okay, for me, I mentioned him already, but it is Jameson Crowder, who I have ranked 31st. I think I mentioned coming in, and he's 40th. Again, I know it's Joe Flacco. There is nobody else to throw the ball to. Yes, Le'Veon Bell probably will come back and he'll get a few targets, but Brashad Perriman's still going to miss this game. Joe Flacco is Joe Flacco, but Joe Flacco is not Luke Falk. He's somebody who will at least throw the ball a little bit. And Crowder has played 2 games. He's got 23 targets, 14 catches, 219 yards, and a touchdown. He's not exciting, but this is... I say this most weeks. This is a week you don't need exciting. If you can give me somebody who's going to give me wide receiver 3 production, I will take that any day of the week and not worry about it. Tags, you sort of poo-pooed it. Where do you have Crowder ranked this week?
I have him ranked at at wide receiver 29. So
he's higher.
So you're even higher than I am. I mean, ECR's...
I'm not high on him. I think he's boring.
Tags, ECR is 40.
40?
The highest ranker in ECR is 25th.
I thought it was going to be him, and I was going to die laughing.
Yeah, you are almost the high guy on Jameson Crowder, so thank you for joining me. That is not weird. What you are really realistically, Tags, because I'm basically there with you. You are ranked where he should be ranked. Somebody has him ranked 56th. I don't know. I don't know who you are.
Where does that person have T.Y. Hilton?
T.Y. Hilton we should talk about at some point, but I'm going to mention him a little later in a section
Is this
here.
an
Special
apology section?
Okay. Anybody... No, I will never apologize. Anybody else outside the top 30 guys that you are thinking is a guy you might want to start this week? I was struggling for names, at this point. There really weren't many good ones. Anybody else outside the top 30?
I think Golden Tate could be an interesting one. He's been he's been crappy so far, but Dallas in the slot has really struggled. They've struggled as a secondary period. That's why I like Darius Slayton a whole lot this week. But Golden Tate, I mean, if you look at Daniel Jones's career to this point, there's been like 4 games where he's had really, really good weeks, and they've been against really, really crappy defenses. And those are the games that had people thinking that he was like a breakout candidate this year and drafting him as a sleeper. We talked about in this show. We were saying don't do that. But this is actually a matchup where it can happen, where all of a sudden we could see that 25-plus point upside of Daniel Jones. And if he does, then Golden Tate's going to be a big part of it.
Yep.
Not else anyone that I'm like pounding the table
you're
for.
Good to go.
So let's just move on.
That's fine.
I am not going to say Brandon Cooks. Not going to say it.
Oh my God, though. Tags. Where do you have Brandon Cooks ranked right now?
I don't even want to say it.
No, you do because you have to say it, so I don't have to say it because I've legitimately been like, you can drop. Where do you have him?
I'm at 34. I think that's basically a bottom end wide receiver 3, which is weird to say after he has a 0 reception game. But don't forget, Will Fuller had a 0 reception game.
Yeah, that is true. How about you, Yates? Out of curiosity, where do you have
I'm at
Brandon
43.
Cooks ranked? All right. Well, he's 39th in ECR. So
where are you at, Dan?
I'm at 37.
Okay.
But I'm basically not going to allow myself to keep him there when all of this is said and done, because I'm going to have to move. I'm not going to allow myself. This is one we talk about sort of our processes where we make our projections, and then I'm willing to sort of bounce off the projections for sure. If I'm just like, no, I can't do this. That is one where I'm going to bounce off my projections almost 100%. But anyway, let's go to quarterbacks here. Outside the top 12 in ECR tags, anybody who jumps out to you?
Kirk Cousins. Teddy Bridgewater's inside the top 12, which really sucks because I was going to go with him. But I think Cousins is right up there too. You look at the Seahawks team and, they've faced 50 pass attempts per game. Like, seriously, check that again. 200 pass attempts through 4 games, which is ridiculous. This is really going to help the Vikings because they've only run 55.8 plays per game to this point, which is one of the lowest in the NFL, whereas Seahawks opponents have averaged 73.8. The reason that happens is because Russell Wilson's been so damn efficient that basically they're not spending a lot of time with their hands on the ball. Their opponents are passing a lot, stops the clock, yada, yada, all that stuff. We were talking about the wide receivers, how we all have Thielen and Justin Jefferson. We have them ranked as two top 25 wide receivers. That production is coming from Kirk Cousins. And by the way, I didn't even throw this stat out when we talked about Jefferson. The Seahawks have allowed 336 yards per game to wide receivers alone.
Yeah.
That is stupid. That is stupid. This is a game that should feature Kirk Cousins throwing the ball about 40 times against a poor defense that can't get any pressure on the quarterback. So I think Kirk Cousins is a great streamer this week.
Yates, was that your guy? Yeah, I mean, that's my guy as well. So let me throw, I guess, a couple other names out there for you. Tags, where do you have Ben Roethlisberger ranked this week?
Roethlisberger, I think I'm pretty much in line with ECR. I have him at 13 right now. So I'm a little bit higher on him. I don't understand why Joe Burrow is higher than him on ECR.
He's not anymore, Tags. This is at least not what I'm seeing right now. I'm seeing now Roethlisberger is ahead at 14 and Burrow is ahead at behind him at 15.
Okay.
So
mine said 14, 15.
They're right there. Where do you have Burrow ranked, out of curiosity?
I have Burrow at 16. So I think he's a sit this week if you can. It's the same thing with Carson Wentz and Tom Brady. Those guys are all in a category for me. It's brutal matchups where there's no ceiling in those games. So it's like when you're looking for a streamer, why not look for a ceiling? So I would rather play someone like Ben Roethlisberger, someone like Gardner Minshew.
Okay. How about Yates? Would you start Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff?
I would start. Oh, that's close. I would start Kirk Cousins. I have him at 12, and I have Jared Goff at 13. So I just think with Los Angeles, I don't think they're going to have to throw the ball a ton against Washington. So that's my concern.
And how about Cousins against Bridgewater?
I've got Bridgewater at 11, and I've got Cousins at 12. So flip a coin.
Okay. All right. Let's go to tight ends here. Yates, give me somebody outside the top 12 that you might consider.
There really isn't anyone that's jumping off the page. I was looking at this beforehand. Like Jonnu is at 15 right now, but so I think that he would be the answer if they play.
Right.
But his ranking's not going to stay there if that game does end up happening.
Yeah, I think, by the way, there are some guys, and we don't, we're not going into them too much, by the way, but there are some, like somebody has Jonnu ranked 35th. That person is ranking him as if he is almost certain that he's not going to play right now. So that ranking will come in.
So much by the time that we get word on that game. If I have to identify someone, it might be Greg Olsen. Again, we're talking about this game with 57.5 point over-under. You're just looking for pieces in here. And Greg Olsen continues to be involved in this offense. Now, granted, he's not doing a ton. But if we're looking at the options, I'm Logan Thomas, Mo Alley Cox, Eric Ebron, Drew Sample, Chris Herndon, that's just going down the guys that are right after him in ECR. I'm not excited about any one of them. So, yeah, I'll go with Greg Olsen. But, again, his ECR rank is probably where I would still keep him.
By the way, guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, youtube.com/fantasypros, and you see me constantly looking over to my other screen and clicking my thing, it's because I'm legitimately at this point trying to see how low I can move Brandon Cooks after we talked about it and I threw up in my mouth a little bit. So in case you see me distracted, that's legitimately what I'm doing at this moment. Tags, give me a tight end outside the top 12 who you might be a little more excited about than the consensus.
I'm going to go with our biggest Twitter supporter, and that's Eric Ebron.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, go ahead.
That's the correct answer?
That is the correct answer, yes.
I love this. So Eric Ebron, the routes run is a lot more than I thought it was going to be this year. Mm-hmm. He's averaging 28.7 per game. That's the 14th most among tight ends right now. His targets have risen every week from 3 to 5 to 7, and I know that part of came from Deontay Johnson being out. But Deontay Johnson, I'm not going to pretend that his matchup is gold this week. He's going to match up with Darius Slay the majority of the time because Juju Smith-Schuster is going to go in the slot, Nickel Roby-Coleman. So those matchups are not great for those two wide receivers. So we could see Eric Ebron used in a big fashion. And to give you the Eagles have allowed 2.79 PPR points per target to tight ends through 4 weeks. Let me just explain how bad that is. You remember last year, like the Cardinals, how we streamed every single tight end that we could against them. You guys remember that? Obviously, you remember that. That was that was the historically bad defense against tight ends. They allowed 2.39 PPR points per target. Again, the Eagles have allowed 2.79 PPR points. They've had to move Jalen Mills from safety down to cornerback because of the injuries that they have to Avonte Maddox. It's a good situation for Eric Ebron, and if you're streaming, you're looking for a touchdown. Eric Ebron, I have him at tight end 11 this week.
Wow. Okay, so that's even higher than I do. I have him at 14, and he was still the guy on my list. All you need to know about the Eagles is that they gave up a touchdown to Logan Thomas, who everybody knows how the guys feel about him. Yates, how are you, out of curiosity,
I've got
on
him
Eric
right
Ebron
behind
right
Greg Olsen at 16. So I've got Olsen at 15. So,
okay.
But again, all these guys, throw them in a blender. It's whichever one comes out with a touchdown is the one that you're going to be happy with. So if you're looking for that, then Eric Ebron probably has the best opportunity.
Oh, by the way, guys, I was looking at the Colts situation, and Mo Alley Cox was someone that we've talked about in this show, and that I was like, I don't know if you could put him back in the box, but this is be prepared to puke again, Dan. The first game of Trey Burton in a Colts uniform.
Yep. Oh. Yes.
He ran 17 routes. Mo Alley Cox ran 7. Doyle ran 13. So apparently, Matt Nagy, Frank Reich, both of them think that Trey Burton is just, God's gift to tight ends.
Yeah.
Not great. Like, but with the way that happened, Burton also saw 5 targets. So it's very possible that Burton is actually the tight end to own in Indianapolis, which is the stupidest thing I've ever said.
Yeah, no, I was watching that game, and I just kept seeing Burton nonstop, and I was like, wait, what is happening right now? It's crazy. Tags, let me put you to the test here with Ebron at least. Would you start Eric Ebron or Hayden Hurst, Carolina?
Hayden Hurst.
Eric Ebron or Evan Ingram at Dallas?
Those guys are right next to each other. I have Evan Ingram one spot higher just because I think his target floor is higher, but I think Ebron's ceiling might be actually higher.
Okay. How about Eric Ebron or Austin Hooper against Indianapolis?
Yeah, don't.
Hooper's garbage.
Yeah, Hooper is 13th.
I have 19.
I got him at
19.
21. Do not. The Indianapolis Colts are surrendering 1.8 fantasy points on average to opposing tight ends this season.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say that incorrectly. 1.8 fantasy points on average.
Yeah, he was a guy who was on my sort of what is happening right now? Why is he so far up there? So I agree. We're all fading that. All right, let's go to a sit here. We're not necessarily telling you not to play these guys, but let's go with a running back within the top 20 tags that you're fading a little bit.
That I'm fading. David Montgomery, is he still in the top 20?
Oh, I'm sorry. Standard.
All right.
He's outside the top 20, though.
No, he's 23 in half PPR. By the way, guys, just so you know, we do this podcast every week. We ask the same questions every week.
I know, but it's...
All right, we're going to go to Yates, the prepared analyst. Go ahead.
Yeah, because that's the normal thing. Tags not being prepared. No, Kenyan Drake. He's the easy answer here, guys. Like, we can't confidently at this point recommend that people continue to roll out Kenyan Drake as a locked and loaded. I mean, in half PPR, he's at 12.
He's 12th. How is that possible? Like, it's not even a good matchup for him. It's not against the Jets.
What we've seen on the field from this Arizona offense, we can't recommend Kenyan Drake as a top 12 option. Like, I don't know why he's all the way up there. I think that you can still roll him out as a low-end RB2, especially when we just finished talking about all the other names that, you're considering outside the top 20 that we're not excited about, but yet at the same time, not at 12.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. He was a guy, when I saw his ECR, because I did it, what we can do when you rank players is you can see, if you would like, where you stack up versus the consensus. So you can see who you're, difference on. So that's what I do right before we start. And Drake was the guy. I have him at 23rd. He's still a starter. He's still an RB2, but a low-end one right now. You can't feel comfortable, whether it's the health tags. You mentioned that great stat you have about, how many more yards he should be getting. It's just... I don't understand how he's ranked 12th at this point. So and apparently, Yates, I don't know where you have him. I'm looking at the best and the worst. 23rd is the worst. That's me. I am apparently the lowest ranker on Kenyan Drake right now. And maybe he'll move up a little bit, especially if there are some games that are canceled. But I don't see him creeping up into like strong RB2 territory.
Like James Conner is at 19. Are we really recommending that people start Kenyan Drake confidently over James Conner? I'm not.
Right.
No way.
No way. And I get that it's not, a great matchup for Conner, but Conner is 12th for me. Like, they're not in the same vicinity right now. Tags, have you had enough time now to prepare and find yourself a running back?
I had one, but Yates stole it. I'm kidding. I'm going to take the easy way out here. I'm going to say Derrick Henry because he's not going to play. But if I really want to give one that I'm worried about in terms of meeting expectations, it's Miles Sanders. Basically, every single week I tell people, like, beware of what the Steelers do on defense. Do you know they have not allowed a top 12 running back performance since 2018? Wow.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous, man. This offensive line is banged up. Lane Johnson's apparently going to have to play through this injury all season long. Carson Wentz is playing like crap. They're just gonna. It's jailhouse. Like they're just gonna jailbreak for the quarterback. And Carson Wentz has been terrible under pressure. So this is a game where Miles Sanders needs to get it done through the air if he's going to do anything. But the Steelers have actually been pretty good against pass catching running backs too. So it's just not a great week for him. You're gonna play him because we've talked about the mess at running back and the players that we have in our top 24 this week is disgusting. But keep your expectations in check.
Right. So that's what I do want to make it clear. Where do you have Sanders ranked?
I have him at RB14.
Right. Okay. So he's still a guy who you're, of course, starting. But that is the point I want to make here, because sometimes people listen to this and then we get questions on Twitter being like, oh my, should I start random running back who stinks over this guy you mentioned?
Right.
No. We're not saying that. We're just saying guys who are lower on than the consensus. Guy for me is David Johnson. He's been actually moving down since I first checked it. He was 13th in ECR when I first checked it. Now he's 15th. I still have him a few spots lower than that. This could be a good game for him for certain. And we don't know how the firing of Bill O'Brien is going to factor in, if at all, to the game plan. But Duke Johnson's back. They got him more involved, even with Jacksonville. I'm not starting him over like David Johnson. Let's give this David Johnson or Todd Gurley.
Gurley for sure.
Yeah, and Gurley is behind him in ECR. So it's not. Okay. That's not where I'm at. I get the issues with Gurley not catching passes, but against Carolina, like, that just shouldn't be the case. So Johnson is more of a low-end RB2.
Jacksonville held Derrick Henry outside the top 30 running backs.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not, I'm not saying it's a tough matchup, though, based on that. Like, I get it, and I expect what I'd really like is for Johnson to get 20 touches in a game. He got 18 in this past game, which is great because it's more than before. But again, with Duke Johnson back and healthy, people are still, I don't know, they're looking at him higher than I think he needs to be.
Would you start Le'Veon Bell or David Johnson?
That's really close. It's hard for me because I've ranked right now, I believe I have Johnson one spot ahead of Le'Veon Bell now.
Same.
So 21st and 22nd in my rankings. What about you, Tex?
That's why I was asking you, because I'm kind of torn on those two. I have them right there next to each other in the rankings.
And I don't know how that's going to end up, by the way. That is something where when I revisit on Saturday night, that's going to be a close one for me. I guess I'd start Johnson. Right now I have Johnson at, so let's just leave it there, and then we'll revisit later in the week. Let's go to wide receiver here. Who's a guy within the top 30 in expert consensus rankings that you are fading a bit? Tags, are you ready with the name, or would you like me to go to the... Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm T.Y. Hilton. I mean, I messaged you guys this week, and I said, am I crazy? Like, why is T.Y. Hilton ranked inside the top 30 wide receivers? I was trying to, lower him, and I lowered him, and I was like, am I going too far, or am I too high by saying he's a wide receiver 4? And then I go and I look, and he's at wide receiver 28 or 29. And so JJ Zacharyson, he's a friend of the show, he posted something. The last 9 games that T.Y. Hilton has played, he's finished as the wide receiver 58, 64, 58, 61, 38, 50, 87, 56, and 76.
Yates, you're a noted T.Y. Hilton lover. Where do you have him?
Oh, my word.
Does it go low enough? Do you rank enough
receivers
to have Hilton?
I've got him at 45 right now.
Okay. And Tags, where do you actually have him?
Well, again, this
No, it's okay. I'm gonna have your back here. Go ahead.
Well, it's because of the lack of like guaranteed options. I have him at 34 among wide receivers. And
I'm 36. I don't want to have to defend this anymore. But yeah, that's
it's gross. I don't want to say that, but it just has to do with the receivers that you'd play him over. Like, are you really going to play Sammy Watkins over him? Are you going to play Emmanuel Sanders, a guy that's been mediocre? Tough matchup against the Chargers. All right, like Golden Tate, I like this week, but can I play Golden Tate over Hilton? I don't know. Cleveland's been a really good matchup for wide receivers.
Yates, are you starting all those guys over T.Y. Hilton this week?
Emmanuel Sanders, I have 44, and I have T.Y. Hilton at 45. Not excited about either one of them.
There you go. Okay, Sammy Watkins?
I have him at 35 this week.
There we go. All right. Yeah, Tags, you and I will be, it's a terrible place to be, but we'll be the last people on T.Y. Hilton Island. Although, apparently we're fading him as compared to the expert consensus rankings.
That feels good.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Yates, wait, where do you have him? Yates,
45.
in your rankings?
45, he said. 44?
You are
Shocker.
the lowest, once again, in the industry. Well done. Just keep that brand going, bud. All right, what do you got for your guy that you're fading?
I can't use T.Y. Hilton. That was my answer.
Yates.
Like, it's about as obvious of an answer as I can get.
It is. That's fine. Another guy who I will just put out there, T.Y. Hilton is the answer, but it is Jarvis Landry, who's 30th. I'm 38th. This is just not a game I really want to go near on either side of it. And he hasn't topped 61 yards receiving all year. It's just, I've been fading Beckham all year, except this past week where I liked him a lot in rankings, as did most people. But for me, Landry's just not, I don't know. He's like a borderline wide receiver.
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting. The Browns are moving Landry outside more, and they're keeping him there, and they're bringing Donovan Peoples-Jones into the slot. So Landry is staying on the field, but Landry has been known as a slot presence. And in this game, too, Baker's not going to be able to get much done against this Colts defense. So I'm just not super excited. I'm excited about Landry in the matchups where I think Cleveland's going to have to throw the ball and in plus matchups, but this one, no, I'm downgrading him too.
I'm still not excited about Landry even in plus matchups. I'm really not. And again, he threw a touchdown pass in the game against the Cowboys. It's not like he did it through the air or anything like that. Let's get to quarterbacks here. Let's go somebody within the top 12 that you're not that excited about. Let's start with you, Yates.
Yeah, looking at the top 12, there's not many guys that I can say, like, I like the matchups. Like Drew Brees against the Chargers, I actually think he can do enough now with Michael Thomas back. Teddy Bridgewater, I like. Jared Goff, I'm not crazy about. But again, you heard that I'm only a couple spots down. The guy that I'm saying, like, I think we need to exercise caution with, I'm not saying that you have to sit him. It's Matt Ryan. Even though this is a fantastic matchup, Matt Ryan has looked atrocious the past 2 weeks. And finishing as the quarterback, I believe the quarterback 26 through weeks 3 and 4. So this is just not great for a guy who is supposed to be just continuously in the top 10. And yes, it's a plus matchup, but this could also be a matchup that we see Atlanta lean on Todd Gurley in the run game, and Brian Hill be a factor too. So this takes away the upside with Matt Ryan and not having Julio Jones on the field too, most likely. So him at 8 is a little aggressive. I can see how he can finish there, but yet at the same time, I don't know if that's saying like confidently start him, and I just don't know if I'm there yet.
That was certainly my guy too. How about you, Tex?
That's who I also would have said, but I do want to say that the reason I'm a little hesitant about it is because, so Carolina, one, they are actually, they've been a tough matchup, and that's the weirdest part, is when I started going through the numbers this year, they've allowed 6.34 yards per attempt to quarterbacks. That's the third lowest in the NFL. I have zero idea how they've done that with the cornerback trio, the trio that they have running out there, or there's 4 of them that have been on the field. But Eric Washington's scheme is done better than we thought. They have allowed a 71.7% completion rate, which is the 5th highest in football. So teams have basically said, hey, we're not going to take chances. We're going to dump the ball down over and over, and we're going to beat you that way. Julio Jones, probably not going to play this week. I'm going to assume that. Calvin Ridley does well when he gets targets. Deontay Johnson is no match for Calvin Ridley. That can be a burn. I do think they struggle with pass-catching running backs and tight ends, so therefore Hayden Hurst could have a game if the Panthers walk out and put up points. And to be fair, Teddy Bridgewater ranked 11th in ECR. People are expecting them to put points on the board this week. If they jump out to a lead in this Falcons team because the defense can't stop anybody, and by the way, they're down like their 3 best safeties right now. They're missing multiple cornerbacks. Their cornerbacks weren't good to begin with. So if Carolina goes out and scores points, Matt Ryan is going to be throwing the ball 45 times this week. And again, teams haven't really done that against the Panthers. And if Matt Ryan does, he can kind of expose their cornerback unit. So that's why I'm worried about completely fading Matt Ryan, but I definitely understand what you guys are saying.
Yeah, I'm with you there that it's a little unsettling to be fading him right now because you could see a monstrous game even without Julio Jones. But I do think that this is going to be something where they will probably try to protect against their defensive deficiencies by controlling the clock. Think about the way the Patriots attacked the Chiefs. I think they're going to try to lean into the run against Carolina's rush defense. I think it's going to be a lot of Todd Gurley, and I do think you'll have Hill. So I do think there won't be that much, the clock will run. I expect this game to finish kind of faster than a lot of the other ones. So I think the volume might be down. But, yeah, there is certainly that chance. Let's go very quickly to tight ends. Anybody within the top 12 that you guys are looking to fade? Let's start with you, Tags.
Not really. I mean, it's really difficult to trust Rob Gronkowski after what we saw last week. It was a good matchup. He saw 3 targets. I was actually coming around to like Gronk because it seemed like his usage was increasing. His snaps were increasing. And then last week we see O.J. Howard catch a touchdown, then Cameron Brate come in and catch a touchdown after Howard got hurt. And it's like, is anything going to go to Gronk right now? They're playing against the Bears on Thursday night. I have him down at tight end 18 right now. The Bears have allowed just 3 tight ends to top 50 yards over the last 20 games. So it's basically touchdown or bust for Gronk. And I see this as a very low scoring game, and I just can't trust Rob Gronkowski right now.
How about you, Yates? Anybody within the top 12? And again, I said within the top 12, and Tags went to the guy who's 15th in ECR. So
he's
he based
standard.
He's based. I don't know
That's
what
standard,
ECR
Tags.
You were looking at, Tags. Are you in standard, Tags?
It's switched because I went to quarterbacks.
I did that for me too.
Tags. Right. That's like rookie mistakes. We've been podcasting for years at this point. Get it together. Go ahead, Yates.
There's actually a few names in here that I'm like, I don't really like these. Zach Ertz being all the way up at 5. Not crazy about that after what we've seen the past few weeks. Tyler Higbee at 7. Don't know why he's all the way up there.
Yep.
And then Mike Gesicki at 9. What have we seen from Gesicki in this offense over the past couple of weeks that has made us confident to rank him all the way up at 9? Evan Ingram at 10. Same thing. So there's a lot of these names that I'm like, I really don't like them.
Yates, who is replacing those guys?
That's the thing, though.
Curiosity?
That's the thing where it's like,
Eric Ebron.
Looking at the options, it's like, okay, I don't like them up there, but yet at the same time, I can understand why they're up there because you look at the other options. If you don't have a Kittle, Kelsey, Mark Andrews, Darren Waller right now, and it would be Jonnu Smith if he was playing, if you didn't have those options right now, or if you don't have those options right now, then you're kind of just like rolling the dice, putting them in your lineup, and just like closing your eyes and hoping that it works out.
Yeah, and Gesicki, by the way, I agree with that 100%. I didn't realize he was so high in half PPR.
Thank you.
The 49ers, over the last 20 games, they've had a lot of injuries, yes, but over the last 20 games, there have been just 4 tight ends who have eclipsed 32 yards against them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to see exactly where I have him ranked very quickly. Sorry, this is also a rookie mistake. For me, Gesicki, I have Gesicki 12th. So it's not, I mean, he's there because there just aren't that many options necessarily go on. But yeah, he is a little high for me in ECR. All right, top deep sleepers here, guys. Half PPR formats, please, for the win. Let's go outside the top 36. Who are you looking at as a top deep sleeper? Let's start with you, Yates. Outside the top 36, half PPR
for the running back
back
position, there, Justin Jackson is the sleeper here, as someone that I want to mention to make sure that because of the assumed workload through the air, I think that looking at his opportunity here, he can absolutely be someone that you can plug in and you can maybe get RB3 production from, or all the work could go to Josh Kelley and you're left with, a 0 from Justin Jackson. So I think this is one that if you can wait a week to find out what his workload's going to be like, it's not a great matchup either. So I'm not saying that you have to confidently start him, but yet if you're looking for someone outside this range, Justin Jackson's probably the way that you want to go.
He's 49th in ECR. Where do you guys have him?
I have him at 37.
Yeah, I have him 34th. 49th is crazy to me, given the injury to. I mean, look at the guys right ahead of him. Gio Bernard, Dearness Johnson. Not a bad play either. I think Johnson's too low as well. Zach Moss, McKissick, Boston Scott, Jordan Howard. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'll take my chances with Jackson when you're in that range. Was he your guy, Tags, outside the top 36?
Yes, he absolutely was. And if you wanted another one, I think Duke Johnson is someone that you could play in desperation just because it is a new coaching staff, and hopefully it's going to be really tough to implement a new offense, over the course of 5 days. So I guess it's going to be. I would guess that they're probably going to run the ball a little bit more. Duke Johnson was involved in the offense even before he got hurt. It seemed like they had both Duke Johnson and David Johnson on the field a little bit. So I think if you're looking for just a floor play, like someone that you could find on most waiver wires, Duke Johnson.
All right, let's go to wide receiver here. Let's talk about wide receivers. We're going deep sleepers here. So let's talk about guys who are ranked outside the top 50 in half PPR formats. Tags, do you have a name that jumps out at you?
I do, yeah. Anthony Miller. And so Anthony Miller, he has played over at least 43 snaps in each of the last 2 weeks. I know the numbers have not been great. And I've said this before about matchups, and I really hope that Matt Nagy, understands this, because what works against the Bucs, you attack them over the middle of the field. They're going to have Carlton Davis covering Allen Robinson. Carlton Davis is not like a shutdown corner, but he's a good one. So that's going to happen. Miller in the slot against Sean Murphy Bunting. Second-year cornerback. In his coverage this year, he's allowed 7 of 18 passing for 222 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's good enough for a 155.1 quarterback rating. Like, perfect is 158.3. So if Nagy wants to, attack weaknesses, this is a no-brainer. Anthony Miller should crush that matchup. And I have another one. I think Zack Pascal is somebody that you could actually play in a pinch. Got 8 targets last week. And the matchup that he has this week in the slot against the Browns, it might be better than T.Y. Hilton's. So I wouldn't be shocked if he outscores T.Y. Hilton this week.
Yeah, Pascal is a guy also on my list.
Tim
How about
Patrick.
you, Yates?
That's
right. Yates, are you looking right now, before you go, Yates? Are you looking right now at
64.
DCR? Okay, what's the best ranking for him?
47.
47.
Who has that ranking, do you think?
Dan Harris.
Dan Harris at 47. Go ahead, Yates.
Yeah,
I'm right
Tim
there
Patrick's
with you.
a wide receiver 27 on the season so far. And if that illustrates how crazy 2020 has been, just look no further than Tim Patrick being the wide receiver 27 on the season. No, I think looking at his opportunity here, and if it was a scary matchup to begin with, and we talked about him on the waiver wire show, Dan, and I was saying, Tim Patrick's a little bit lower on my rankings because of the matchup here against New England, that he might draw coverage from Stephon Gilmore. Well, if Stephon Gilmore is out with this and in this game with COVID, then
he's not
no matter what.
No matter what happens, he's not playing, right?
Correct.
You've got a positive
Correct.
test.
So
you can't possibly
looking at
play
Tim Patrick
again,
now,
right?
and I'm not crazy about the offense. Brett Rippon as the quarterback, not crazy about it, okay? But yet at the same time, if you're looking for this option who is super deep and that you can pick up and roll into your lineup as a flex play, he's getting the work. KJ Hamler will not play this week. That opens up some opportunity here for Tim Patrick. So I think that he's a fine option to roll into your lineup.
Yeah, that is my guy, as you see with the ranking. All right, let's do the lightning round, a little player versus player. These are some less obvious guys that we'll look at. And you guys can just give me the name. If you want to give me a 10-second analysis, that's fine. But we'll go position by position, and we'll talk about guys who are outside the starting range. Let's start with you, Tags. You are forced to make this decision. Are you starting Mark Ingram against Cincinnati, Joshua Kelley, who we talked about earlier, against New Orleans, or Latavius Murray against the Chargers?
Mark Ingram, Cincinnati. There should be a touchdown in there. He might only get 10 carries, but he should score a touchdown.
Okay, Yates, you are the single biggest cheerleader for Latavius Murray ever, and it's pretty much worked out for you. Latavius Murray, I'll give you him again, against the Chargers. This is half PPR. James White against Denver, or Devonta Freeman, who we mentioned earlier.
I'll go with the
Dallas.
workload here with Latavius Murray.
Okay, let's go to wide receiver Tags. Let's go T. Higgins against Baltimore. Russell Gage, let's assume Julio Jones is out. Russell Gage against Carolina, or Brandon Ayuk against Miami.
I'm going Ayuk here. There's actually quite a big difference between all three of those receivers. I have Ayuk up at 34, Gage at 40, and then I have Higgins down around wide receiver 50. Higgins is going to match up with Marcus Peters more often than not, so that's a tough matchup for a rookie. Gage, I like a little bit. Is a floor option, but if you want a decent floor with a ceiling, it's Ayuk, because he's running every single route out there. Deebo Samuel was being eased in. I think he only ran, I think it was 16 routes last week off the top of my head. So they're easing him back into action, and Ayuk just looks fantastic. Right. That touchdown this past week was just something where you rewind it and you're like, that dude is just that's an athlete right there. And playing against Miami, a team that's been pretty giving.
Yeah. All right, Yates. AJ Green against Baltimore, Hunter Renfrow against Kansas City, or Emmanuel Sanders.
It's probably
against
Hunter
the Chargers.
Renfrow. If you're projecting the game script here that Las Vegas is going to have to play catch up, then Hunter Renfrow could. And again, we don't have clarity yet on Bryan Edwards, Henry Ruggs, at least to my knowledge. So I'll go with Hunter Renfrow there.
All right, let's go to tight end here. Tags. Somebody, I guess you're fading him, so we'll go to somebody else. How about Logan Thomas, best player ever, against the Rams? Greg Olsen, who Yates mentioned earlier, against the Vikings, or Mo Alley Cox against Cleveland?
Well, Ali Cox belongs on waiver wires. Logan Thomas arguably belongs on waiver wires, so it's easy Greg Olsen. I have him twice as high as either of those guys.
All right, how about you, Yates, with those guys?
Olsen.
Logan Thomas. I mean, you said Greg Olsen, I guess. So let's go Logan Thomas, and for you, Yates, let's go a little different. Okay, let's go Logan Thomas, of course, because he's the best player ever. Eric Ebron, because you're not quite as high as Tags and I are, or
It's
Drew
Ebron there
Sample.
pretty easily.
Man, these I'm telling you, once you get past, I'm outside the top 12, once you're there, nobody. I will take nobody to go here. Yep. Okay, let's go finish up with QBs. Let's go with Tags. Joe Burrow at Baltimore, Tom Brady at Chicago, or Daniel Jones at Dallas?
Daniel Jones, easy.
How about you, Yates, with that same
I wasn't
list?
listening. Who were the three?
You never listen. Joe Burrow at Baltimore, Tom Brady at Chicago, Daniel Jones
Burrow.
at Dallas. Okay. Interesting. All right. So, guys, that's the who should I start. We have a who should I start tool for guys who are close calls. You can use that over at fantasypros.com/NFL/start. You can compare up to 4 players at each position across multiple positions. Again, that's fantasypros.com/NFL/start. All right. Let's do start of the week very quickly and sit of the week. Tags, who is your start of the week?
I guess I'm just going to plant my flag on Justin Jefferson. When I said that he's a top 20 play, I mean it.
Yeah, I like it. How about you, Yates?
I'm just gonna double down.
On
I'll double down.
End of story. Well, all right then.
All right,
Yates,
Darius Slayton.
Okay, where do you have Slayton ranked, Tags?
26.
Nice. I'm 28th. I like it. I'm with you. Okay, who is your sit of the week? I'll start with you then, Yates, so Tags can't steal your guy. Man, it's like a cheat code for you. It's unfair. Okay, Tags, how about you?
I'll say T. Higgins.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good name. Very good. All right, let's get into it very quickly. It is. What do you want?
It's like trivia. It's great.
It is. It's like trivia, but it's also an hour into the show, and I have to make sure that we finish on time. Let's go do the Thursday night preview here with the Bucks visiting your Bears. Bucks. Tags, is there any chance you're starting Tom Brady?
No, not if I can help it. There's not.
Where do you have him ranked?
I have him ranked as the 19th quarterback right now, and that's missing literally a couple guys from the rankings because I don't know about those games.
Brady or Justin Herbert?
Herbert. And that's another question mark. We don't even know if Tyrod Taylor's cleared. Anthony Lynn's dumb and he's going to play him.
Yeah, probably true. Okay, fine. That's fair. Let's go running back here. Let's go to you, Yates. Where do you have Ronald Jones ranked? I know Tags talked about him earlier. Let's assume no Leonard Fournette here. Where would you have him ranked?
Yeah, I have him at 23.
PPR?
So I still think that
Okay.
he's a startable asset. I think that he can, but again, he comes with huge question marks.
Ronald Jones or David Montgomery, Yates?
That was my
Ronald
question.
Jones at 23. I have Montgomery at 25.
How about you, Tags?
I have Jones 2 spots higher than Montgomery as well.
Yeah, I have Jones higher than Montgomery as well. What if Fournette plays here, guys? We'll probably know. You might know by the time
Throw
you
up all of your
podcast.
keyboard.
Do you just?
What if they're not at a
the
keyboard?
8th time I've done that.
Throw up on your spouse, your loved one, your kids, whatever you got to do, just throw up.
Why are you throwing up on your kids? That's such a weird suggestion.
Wherever you're at, you might be carrying your kid. You might be following him as he's driving around in his remote control Mustang. I don't know.
All right. Are you running away from every running back in Tampa if both Fournette and Jones play?
Ideally, yeah.
Okay. How about wide receivers here for the Bucks? You're starting Mike Evans
if
he plays. I'm going to assume Mike Evans is playing. It's with a Thursday game with them. They're all banged up. I'm not reading too much into the fact that they're not practicing. I mean, again, Go ahead.
I think it's possible that he went into the locker room, he got a pain injection shot, and then he came out. Adrenaline, when it's going, you don't feel as bad, like, especially on your ankle. Like, if you guys have played sports. If you roll your ankle or like a bad ankle sprain, you're fine. It's almost like you got through it that day, but then you wake up the next morning and it is awful. Knowing it's a Thursday game, I'm not convinced that he's 100% going to be out there, but as of right now, I do think he plays, but I don't think it's 100%.
Yesterday.
If he does. Yeah, but again, it's a Thursday game. Nobody practiced yesterday.
Yeah.
If you look at the practice report, it's like everybody's
none of them
off.
did. 4 wide receivers all
right.
down.
I'm expecting Evans to play. I'm expecting Miller to play. I'm not going crazy over either one. Let me ask you something now, Tex, because it's not a good matchup. The Bears have not allowed a touchdown to a wide receiver all year long, I don't believe. So would you start... Where is Evans in your ranking, assuming he plays, Tex?
I mean, Godwin's not going to play, so I'm assuming that Mike Evans plays right now. I have him as the wide receiver 14.
Okay. All right. So would you start then? Let me pull up the rankings here so I can ask a couple of guys who are right in there. Where do you have him?
I have him at 22 right now. He'll probably move up slightly.
Okay.
But that's just while I'm waiting for the injury news.
Okay. Tags, would you start Evans or DJ Chark at Houston?
Oh, Evans.
Evans or McLaurin versus the Rams?
Evans.
Evans or DJ Moore against Atlanta?
DJ Moore.
Okay. All right. All right, we talked about Gronk already, so let's go to the Bears here. You're obviously not starting Nick Foles, and we've talked about Montgomery. Where does Montgomery actually slide in for you guys? Because I know we've talked about Jones being a little higher. Tags, where is he for you?
I have him 20th right now, and that's, again, with a couple games still to be slotted in, so it'll be around 20 to 24, something like that.
Yeah, I have him at 25. He's a low-end RB2.
Dave Montgomery or Yates, Mark Ingram against Cincinnati?
Montgomery has more guaranteed volume.
Yeah.
Dave Montgomery or Antonio Gibson against the Rams? How about you, Tags?
I have Montgomery higher because of the more guaranteed volume, because the game script can really go negative on Antonio Gibson, and he hasn't been really used heavily in the passing game. I mean, we are seeing an uptick. He's the upside play for sure. If you're like, I don't care if David Montgomery gets me 11 PPR points. That's nothing. That's not going to help me win. Then you want to play Antonio Gibson over him.
All right. No worries about Allen Robinson in this game, right? You're starting him as a top 12 wide receiver, Tags?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And Tags, you kind of like Anthony Miller, right? Where do you have him ranked?
Anthony Miller is ranked. Let me see. He is at wide receiver 43 for me right now.
Okay. Yeah, so a flex play for you. How about you,
That's
Yates?
exactly
where do you have
where
Miller ranked?
I have him at 43.
Okay. All right. So he's a guy for you guys that you would start in an absolute pinch if you had to. How about Jimmy Graham? We didn't touch on him. He's ranked 12th in ECR.
With the other options, I think that you can start him.
I'd start him over Mike Gesicki, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't love Graham. I have him at 14, but I have Gesicki at 15, so okay. I guess I would play Graham.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not as low on Gesicki then as you guys are, because I would start him over Graham. How about you, Yates? Would you start
Yeah,
Graham
I would.
over
I have
Gesicki?
Graham at 10, and I have Gesicki at 13.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so it's flipped for me, so I would start Gesicki over him. All right. That is it for today's show. Good job, guys, and obviously just checking things on the fly since you didn't prepare or have the right format when I was asking you questions. Remember, use our Start Sit Assistant over at fantasypros.com/myplaybook. Remember, guys, we do a ton of Start Sit on Sunday mornings, especially I do an IG Live at Fantasy Pros. I take over the account from 10 to 11. Tags us a live stream on youtube.com/fantasypros from 11 to 12, and then Yates takes over youtube.com/fantasypros, pardon me, from 12 to game time. All the Start Sit, all the time. In the meantime, Tags, go finish your primer. I'm going to get out of here and do some remote learning, and we will talk to you tomorrow on our DFS show.
Thanks for tuning into the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. While you're here, don't forget to check out the featured videos. While you're at it, go over to Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Fantasy Pros to get news and updates throughout your season to help you dominate the competition.